great-grandmother. And of course, women were pastors back in those days in the Quaker Church. And she rode up and down the East Coast. She even went to Europe. And her descendants would eventually come to this area, the Hopewell area and around here. Her granddaughter, who is my second great-grandmother, is buried right out here, and I'm going to be buried near her too. This book, and the reason I kind of wanted you to see it, I had shared it with Kim Rose in the Historical Society a year or so ago, and I got an email from Kim last spring, and she said, "Have you seen this?" And on Amazon, ladies, this is the truth, I'm not telling a story. On Amazon, this book, they wanted $849.33. And I've never seen anything like it. And I got on the other day, and all it says is it's out of order. But it was written by an Algie Newland, so I think that's got to be somehow ties here too. That's just some of the background that, you know, I think is rather interesting. And when the Quakers came here, so many of them came because they were so upset with what was going on in the South, slavery. And they came to the area, came to the north, up through the Carolinas, Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana, and over here. And 2 years ago, thank you, Randy Gardner at Vermilion Grove Friends, he let me borrow the Quaker records from there. And our forefathers lived different times. And some of the things that you could get in trouble for back then in the Quaker Church was, and I just wanted to share a few of them with you. You would be eldered if somebody offered to fight a person in anger, if you danced or played dice, attending circus shows, giving or receiving money betting on horse racing. So I told Jim Mills, because he raises horses, he goes to Friends Church in Vermilion Grove, I said, don't be betting on those horses. One person was eldered because he had had dances at his house. So again, things were different back then. Last winter, thank you, John Berlin, it was. I borrowed Elwood's record, and I was thrilled to find some things out there too. My grandfather, Lon Thornton, helped build this altar. And in October of 1935, Elwood bought $13.77 worth of materials, and they paid my grandfather $9 in labor, and he was working on the belfry then to fix that. So I thought that was an interesting sort of thing. Vermilion Grove and Elwood were both set up in the 1820s. As time progressed, there were people, of course, moving in and moving to the Georgetown area. And by the 1870s, Quakers requested a preparative meeting in Georgetown. It was approved by Vermilion Quarterly Meeting. And they bought a piece of ground that was 87 feet by 250 feet. It was acquired from James Lockett. They erected a building 36 by 60 feet at a cost of $4,000, which I thought sounded kind of steep back in the 1870s. But there was evidently some talk because the inside was not very Quakerish in appearance. They had brighter colors, fancy lamps. They had a singing book called Pure Gold. No salary was paid to the pastor, that was usual. An interesting event also, and I copied this directly from a history of Vermilion County, and this caused dissension. A bell was purchased, but as no bell had ever been hung in a Quaker meeting in America, the belfry had not been sufficiently stayed to be considered safe, and a tower was built nearby to hold it, so that now the progressive Friends of Georgetown are summoned to their first day and fourth day meetings by the ringing of a bell. Now, if you're around Georgetown at 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning, you can still hear that bell ringing. And my husband's the one who's doing it. He's the bell ringer. In 1880, the library there had 172 volumes Quakers were always big on education. The membership was 213. Wow. And ministers, they had 2 men and 1 woman. The first revival was held in 1887 by Levi Reese, who I think was also a missionary in Africa. The early janitors were paid $50 to $55 a year, and they had to furnish all the fuel for stoves and lamps. In May of 1898, a parsonage was completed, and I found it said $600. I can't imagine that. A very small house, which I'm thinking may have been at the back of our church now in that little part in the parking lot, a little bitty house. By 1909, repairs came about, and again, extensive changes on the interior caused a little bit of an issue. They replaced the plain windows with stained glass. Now again, 1909. And that was very unusual for a Friends church. It was so unusual that the guy who did it came all the way up from St. Louis to make sure this was right. And he knew that that's what the people wanted. A belfry was built on. In 1958, the annex was built on the east side. 1977, a parsonage was bought on McKinley Street, which of course has since been sold. In 1981, carpet and padded pews. In 1982, a ramp and a bathroom for the handicapped. At present day, the early 2000s, and I couldn't pin the date, I think in 2007, we purchased the parsonage right south of the church. It had been the old Grover Blaney house. I don't know if anybody's old enough to remember that or not, but anyway, it's a beautiful old home. I think it was built around 1924. I got the job of working on the stairway. Whew, I was on my knees for I don't know how many days working on that stairway, but it is beautiful and it has been a blessing. Today, you know, Georgetown Friends is certainly still there. There's some good news and bad news. The good news is we gather together and we still love it and love each other. Our pastor, Jim Hollingsworth, he's quite a character. And Jim just spent a month in Africa, and the stories he has, it's unbelievable. Like so many other places, numbers have declined. We have lost so many of our old people. And our younger people are now our old people. So we're facing so many things that I think probably all of you are facing in this day and age. We belong to Indiana Yearly Meeting, which is 150 churches combined mostly in central Indiana. Wonderful people, wonderful. We have just had the whole church repainted, and tomorrow we will have our monthly non-food pantry, which is, oh wow, quite a blessing. We provide things that are, again, non-food items, and we usually it could go anywhere from 60 to 80 families who come in for these things, and I think we are more blessed than they are. So anyway, that is pretty much what has gone on at Georgetown Friends, and if anybody's got a comment or question, glad to entertain it. Thank you.